press briefing. Myself as the Senator for Agriculture and Fisheries, based on communication I received from the President of the Grenada Poultry Association, Mr. Phillip, regarding a communique that was sent out specifically to the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Trade and was copied to the PS of Ministry of Agriculture and of course to the main stakeholder group, the Poultry Association. So this is why we are here, based on a communication dated January the 29th. And more specifically, the communique came from the Caribbean Agro Industries Limited. We know that entity is the sole entity in Grenada that produces animal feed, but also incidentally also produces our baking flour that we use so much for our breads and dumpling and those other food products, cakes and buns, etc. And that has far-reaching effect. The contents of this letter essentially says, due to the increase in the price of inputs, mainly corn, since 2013, and it's specific that we read these lines. It says, these adverse conditions has left us with no choice. Note the words, has left us with no choice but to pass on some of these cost increases to the consumer, and therefore effectively, February 3rd, 2021, and today is February the 1st, prices of flour and animal feed will be revised as follows. This song as a government regulation, the tone of the letter, and it says further, baking flour shall increase 10%, counter flour shall increase 12%, poultry feed shall be increased 6%, hog feed shall be increased 12%, all other feeds shall be increased 16%. Should there be any reversal in the current trends, of course, you know, those nice stock, we will adjust the prices. So what this means is that within the next few days, the cost of feed, the cost of flour, the cost of bread, maybe even the cost of your lunch that you buy in a regular shop, in a restaurant, is likely to increase. And this is a very serious matter. Now, are there any negotiations to come to that price? We're not too sure. The dialogue I had this morning with certain officials seems to be that there is some discussion going on. But I want to note that these items, from speaking to personnel within the Ministry of Trade, feed and flour, are price control items. So, to me, the tone of the letter should be saying, government, you know, we have a situation, so we are saying, look, we need to review some of these prices. So let us have a discussion with the stakeholders, or animal and livestock farmers, or a bakery, as some of the big entities, government, create some facilitation, especially in this time of the COVID. We know the implication of this crisis. Other persons are without a job, other businesses on the verge of closing down. This is a very serious matter. And this matter is most serious in the context of what is referred to as the agreement. There is an agreement. And so last week, Wednesday, when I spoke in the Senate regarding the Grenada matter, and we say for Grenada, this is a good day that we have gone over this, not, I would say, monopoly, but a matter where we can have a more freer enterprise within the whole energy sector. And I specifically said, we need to also look at the issue of the animal feed and the arrangement and the agreement with the Caribbean Agro. Persons may have think, well, okay, I'm speaking on how do we reduce the cost of electricity, because that is why the feed price is so high. But here, not even 7 days after, the reality is facing us straight, is saying that the cost of the inputs. But it's more than that, because this agreement with the Caribbean Agro, well, Continental Grain as the original, dates some 55 years. and it's my understanding, I haven't been able to see a full copy of it, and I would try to request a copy soon. It seems to be unlimited agreement, unlike the Grenada one, which I think had a time span to it. So here we are speaking that for the persons who involved in eating, consuming the meat, we know it's a $35 million import bill. Here we are increasing the price of the input, so the output going to increase. But while that is happening, we have another situation. Only a few weeks ago, and I also spoke to that in the Senate last week, Wednesday, we have importation from our neighbors, Belize. And it's good that you have those opportunities, as we say, and the Poultry Association is very free and open to that. But when we have our increases inside here, we are even in a worse position. We're in a worse position because the importation of even the regular chicken that is brought in by the other imported agents from extra-regionally is at a very low price. So what would happen to our poultry association? What will happen to our poultry farmers who providing employment, who are trying to be their own entrepreneurs for themselves? What is happening to them? And so when you have an agreement whereby in speaking to even the folks in trade, that the ADM is supposed to also be even investing within the sector, investing, even setting up poultry farms. That is not happening. But what is happening is that we have what I would refer to as extraction. Extraction. And Jason will speak towards some of this extraction and what it means to the bottom line of these industries as it compared to the impact it having on our person. I spoke to one of the farmers this morning, and I mean, she speak about the stress level, she pressurizing because of the investment that they have in this thing. Could you imagine you have birds in your run right now that are maybe 2 weeks old and you're facing an increase in price? That's a heart attack. You may have a mortgage to pay in relation to the business. How are you handling that? Yeah. And so a letter like this should be saying that after discussion with the association and with the government and the stakeholders, we have now agreed maybe to increase. And we have agreed to defer for the next 6 months. Let us look and see. Government will not sit back in any way, and I don't expect government to do, and put our consumers and our small business persons at this risk. In fact, what we will learn later on is that there is this Article 164 which speaks about you can import feed from a lesser developed country and so on to protect what they call emerging industries. So the poultry, the feed industry in Grenada, the flour also factory, they fall within that category of industries. And there are other industries which I'm not fully familiar with, but this industry falls in it. So Grenada and Belize in particular falls into that joint category. And that's why also you'd find that if Grenada or Belize try to import, say, from an MDC, Trinidad, Barbados, or so on, then they would have to pay an extra duty on if they import products from there, okay? I'm raising this, and if you go externally, then you have to pay more. I'm raising that because as you hide in your protection in Grenada under Article 164, I can adjust my prices accordingly at your mercies and perils. But at the same time, your hands are tied behind your back. Because if you try to go and get feed in a cheaper place, you are protected on sort of 70% and 100% tax. So you are stifling you. At the same time, chicken and other things can come in through the regular way, as we know, back-and-neck and so on, at regular low prices. So where is that protection for our local individuals? That is all I'm saying. Okay, at this stage, I would let Jason intervene and show the impact that this has on the industry and their businesses, and then we will come back and look at how do we move forward.
Thank you, Senator. This morning comes with a great deal of shock, a great deal of tension, and a great deal of pressure to all poultry farmers across the length and breadth of our beautiful state. We have communicated only this morning to everyone the nature of the communique which was forwarded to us in an effort to keep everyone informed. And the responses that we have received from our farmers has been one of total desperation and complete panic. Poultry, as we all know, has been going through some very trying times from the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic period, where we saw the shutdown, we saw the same ADM Caribbean Agro mills being closed for a period of time. And as an association, we have had to rally, we have had to work quite diligently just to survive, for us and our members to survive the past 12 months. Coming from one situation where we thought that we might be able to clear the air a little bit to try to recuperate, we are now hit suddenly, and this is the thing, we're hit suddenly with a significant increase in cost of operating. Now, let us be clear that in the poultry business, approximately 60 to 70% of our cost comes through feed. That is a significant factor. So any increases in feeds, especially as urgently as this, it significantly affects our ability to do business. Now, roughly 60% of our farmers in Grenada are subsistent farmers. We're talking farmers who use their daily income as a means of sending their children to school, putting food on the table, and doing their daily routines. This increase will now significantly hamper our farmers from even meeting their basic daily requirements. With the suddenness of this information being sent to us and the actions which seem to be about to be taken, it now means that our farmers do not even have the opportunity to sit down with their vendors, sit down with the companies that they supply to even renegotiate pricing on the basis of this. It means now that with an immediate effect, any changes that occur, it means that stock which farmers currently have in hand, you would have to still dispose at the previous rate, and you do not even have an opportunity to recoup some of the costs involved. This is a situation that we cannot sit by and allow to happen. We cannot sit idly by or be quiet. We have to voice our concerns. And I'm here this morning to speak directly to the responses that our farmers are giving. This is not an opinion that I'm placing. This is a direct response for the desperation that our farmers now face. Throughout the entire year, the past 12 months, poultry farmers have not received a dime, not one dime of any form of assistance or any form of revenue that comes outside of the sales that they make. We have seen that the consumption by our consumers have dropped significantly. Though farmers continue to ply their trade, they're doing so under much stress and duress. And this is not a situation where it is a personal decision or a personal opinion. This is our reality. The company ADM, we need to understand the company that we are dealing with. ADM, though it owns the subsidiary here, Caribbean Agro Industry, which is a locally operated facility, the company ADM is a multinational, it's an international conglomerate, which is headquartered in the United States of America. We do understand the need for companies to be profitable. We do support that. It is a private sector entity. We do understand the need for the company to meet its mandates and so. But we do also understand that in a small country, a small economy as Grenada, that the company can exercise a condition that I would like to see is called discretion. From my colleagues across the region in other poultry associations, where ADM also owns facilities where they do processing for feeds, we have also been in communication, and they have instructed us that prices are also going to be increased. In fact, in some cases, prices took effect this morning, like in Trinidad and Tobago. And this has come at a great shock to the farmers in Trinidad and Tobago. So we are seeing a situation where we have a company that is working in unison, has unilaterally made decisions, and now they're heavy-handedly handing down their decisions on every one of the countries that they do business with. And we are only required to react and accept. This is an unacceptable situation that we're in. This morning, the farmers of Grenada has decided unanimously that we are not going to lie down and take it this way. Over the course of the past 12 months, when the mill was shut down here, we had to resort to finding feed via our own means. Much discussions was had. We asked for assistance. We made recommendation. And though the company, by all indication, has the means to have made things function, they didn't. We are expecting a company of this status to be a very good corporate citizen, to look out for the interests of its consumers, which are the farmers, to assist in developing and building and ensuring that you ensure that we survive rough periods like this so that we can come out the better, be stronger, and that we can continue to support the products and services that you sell to us. However, we recognize that whenever times get bad, we are on our own. Given the current situation that we have in Grenada, where access to feed is concerned, our hands are tied. There are so many treaties, there are so many deals which have been signed that have tied us now to the company. We cannot access reasonably feeds at a reasonable rate in any other territory. And even though the access of the other LCDs, their prices are very similar. And in some cases, ADM owns the mill that are in those smaller territories also. We are caught between a rock and a very hard place. And the only alternative we have is that we have our leadership, our government needs to stand up, and it's time to take the fight from the farmers to the company. We cannot do this alone, and we are now directly calling upon our leadership to step up and step forward and help protect our farmers. We are in a desperate situation at this point, and we have no alternative but to get to this point. I would like to draw the attention to ADM, as in the letter that the senator has just referred to, that was sent to us the letter that was sent to us. It highlights that the growing trend in China, based on the consumption of the grains, it's causing a shortage on the market, and therefore it's driving up the prices. Well, let me just add to what the full circle of the picture is. And I just want to read quickly here from Bloomberg, which is a renowned company in the United States for reporting finances and so in terms of companies. And this here says, China, the headline is, China's hunger for U.S. crops drives ADM earnings to record. It also states here, Archer Daniel Midland Company delivered all-time high earnings of $3.59 a share on an adjusted basis last year. The chief executive officer expects another record year in 2021. China is scooping up U.S. crops, pushing combined American corn and soybean export to a record in the fourth quarter, according to data from the U.S. Department of Agriculture compiled by Bloomberg. This is in the fourth quarter of 2020. The company that is complaining that right now prices of the supplies are getting high is the same company that is actually selling the product to China and making big bucks. So you want to eat your cake and have it. The reality is that we are a small economy and we are a drop in the bucket for what a company this size makes and what sustains them. And if, being a good corporate citizen, we cannot reflect and see the need to try to protect our small industry and to assist our industry to grow, then we are really spinning top in mud, as the old people would say. We need to protect our small emerging farms, and as an industry where much development has recently started, where local Grenadians are investing their life savings, their reputations into building an industry that we believe can serve us well into the next 100 years. And we are not being supported in the way that can ensure our success. We are now demanding that we get that support so that we can make this whole industry live and survive for the next 100 years. And this is where our leaders need to step up, and we need to see affirmative action. We cannot do this alone. We are the farmers. I will hand you back to the senator. Thank you.
Yeah, so what we see here, and it's not a picture that is painted, what we see here is the facts. The fact of the matter is that we are seeing growth in the parent company. We are seeing here a small population, a small country, trying to be independent. We're still not fully there, and trying to improve our whole economy in a time when tourism is low, in a time when we need to look at agriculture and other sectors of the economy to grow it. Here we are seeing it's like another natural, and that's not a natural, a man-made disaster is facing us. It's a man-made disaster because these are conscious decisions that are taken by individuals. What we may say though, and I'm confident, as with the same effort that the government and the current administration has taken to address the Grenada matter, which is a soaring and burning issue that had to do with the very said issues of increasing prices on consumers, increasing electricity costs, and related to all other associated costs where electricity is used. Here we have another opportunity to fix something. I wouldn't say that was wrong, because in the 70s, you know, as a small country, you're trying to look at opportunities. And of course, our leadership then would have been saying, you know, look how far we are, what can we do? We need to work with foreign investors, who has funds, who are the means. And they expect that certain aspects should have been reality today. Some of these persons might be turning in their grave, wondering why has not ADM invested in the sector as they're supposed to have, instead of extracting from the sector. I'm sure they are wondering about that. And so we're calling on this, what I would call a modern government, a government in a modern time, because we're living in a digital economy, we are more smart, we are more logic, to do the right thing. And let us take that, what I call unlimited lease on life, because that is what that agreement is, I understand. I haven't seen it. And so if it's not there, I stand corrected. But let's take that and let's relook it. In 2017, there has been some action again by the Poultry Association and the government regarding what is referred to as a poultry policy. And so, in the last sitting of the Senate again, I had some questions, and one of those involved matters pertaining to the poultry policy. As was reported, and rightfully so, within the regulations of the Parliament, we have up to 30 days. And of course, as the leader of government business indicated, you only receive the question about 2 weeks before the sitting, and that's fair. You must have a start and you must have an end. And so we have some questions there pertinent to the poultry policy. Because if some of those action might have been started, the revision and consideration of the policy might have already been in train. The irony is that this policy may not be able to end up in an international tribunal. It may not. So, how can we be guaranteed that government will take swift action? That is the question. It's a $35 million industry. Well, import bill plus things. So when you add up everything, it might end up being maybe about 60, maybe, $1 million EC dollars. So it's not, again, even at the level of the 63 million US dollars that was involved. So it's a sort of small fry thing. But the impact is significant. Could we imagine half, or maybe more than half, of these poultry farmers getting out of poultry business and the impact it has on the family and this country? Could we imagine the impact? The impact could not only be they're out of business. The impact could be more persons depending on government for some sort of stimulus and relief. Already, even within the current construct of the relief from COVID, I understanding from the Poultry Association stand corrected that they are yet to see any real relief. In fact, right now, which Jason has even said, is that the Poultry Association is having to pay over 3,000 US dollars additional in freight to bring in the chicks from Barbados because Leah doesn't operate. So that relationship with tourism and agriculture is at a zero now. So that's another issue. And so chicken price, sorry, the whole chick price has gone up by about 30 cents from the association. And I think the other private persons are also increasing. So all of this is happening. And so when we raise the flag with the bellies matter, persons might be wondering, where are you going with this? But as old people say, trouble doesn't set up as rain. And so we need urgent action. We're calling on the government in its broadest sense to please put a helping hand. And let us, one, cause the increase to be on a stay. And I'll tell you why. Because I'm certain that the current stock of any of these feed product and flour product would have been there maybe up to about 1 month or 2 months ago. So we have a window because the feed to come in didn't come in yet. And even if that's the case, when Caribbean Agro decide to import the feed, it takes maybe about 2 or 3 weeks or a month to get into Grenada. They must have had purchase orders. They are not buying and spot ordering. They must have had contracts that would have been established maybe for 2 years, 5 years. They're a smart company. They're making a lot of money. They're not stupid. So this price that increase here, I still don't buy in it. Because they would not, when they would have signed a contract for feed prices, for supply of corn or whatever it is, maybe a 5-year contract or 3-year contract, they would have looked at certain trends and they would not have signed something that they know the price will increase in such time. And if they have a contract, even if you're reviewing prices, at the end of the day, there have to be some sort of amicable situation. And bearing in mind, is the same company that is making billions over in China. I don't buy that. Of course, we have to look at another aspect. And I know the Ministry of Trade and the price control persons are watching. We have to look and see how these companies are set up. Because I do hope price control and Ministry of Trade, that is not a subsidiary selling to another part of the company at a markup. Yeah? So we need all of these investigations before we just say, yes, this is a price. Because it could be selling at a different price from a same subsidiary. So at the end of the day, the conglomerate still makes the money. Companies set up like that. So we have to call on our farmers to stand strong. I know if you don't have the money to buy the feed, what can happen to the chickens? I know if we don't have the chickens, we'd have to import much more. We may have to start importing eggs at some point. Because we had an egg shortage in December, I understand. There's an egg shortage. So we need to find ways. Now, I would want to put another point. The argument might say, well, why can't we look at local alternatives? It's good to say that. And if that was true, then a company like the say ADM, who have all the technologies and business acumen, would have done that long. They would have done that long, because if they work out that, it would be better for them to do it. So to ask the poor farmer to say, well, why you don't do this? Who are already catching the hell with the means to even keep their birds alive? Who in some cases cannot even get a loan to even expand their facility to go into to that venture, I think is ridiculous. Of course, government can do that because it's an infrastructure, just like building a road. It's an infrastructure that will help to facilitate that diversification. But you know the irony about this whole thing? If you go back to the agreement, that's the agreement between Caribbean Agro, well, Intercontinental, and the government. Anything that seems to be want to jeopardize the viability of the company, even the cost of the chicken itself, like that we would import, anything that's going to disrupt and cause them to be endangered, they can pull the plug. And that is why I say the agreement there is maybe even worse than is considered and as to what the Grenada agreement was. Because we hands are behind we back and someone have a whip over our head. This is where we are. But we call on our farmers, no surrender, no retreat. We call on the government to do the correct thing, do what is right. You're already doing the right things. So let's just take this one as another project and make right in short order. We cannot instruct you. We cannot, as how this letter says, that effective this date. I mean, this is the sad thing about it, eh? And then we say, the Poultry Association cannot write a letter like that. No local person cannot write a letter. That's a very rude letter. It's rude. And the relationship, the same farmers and the same bakeries and so on might have been there buying feed up to last week, you know. You know, lo and behold, what happened to them this morning? Okay, so Jason, I'm not sure if you have closing comments, but this is my closing comments, and then if you have any questions, we'll be free to answer.
Sure. I wish to take this opportunity to clarify that as an organization, our sole focus is on the welfare of our farmers. Irregardless to the size of the farmer, whether they be small subsistence farms, medium-sized operators, large operators, as an organization, we are committed to them all. Whatever happens to the small will affect the large. Whatever happens to the large will affect us all. And so we stand here at this juncture, recognizing that much has been put into growing this sector, much has gone into investment into this sector, and at this stage, we cannot afford to regress. We cannot afford to lose more than 15, 20 years of hard work to start the industry moving forward. We cannot see it go belly side up. It is important to note that the last price change that we had from ADM was in 2019. And at that time in 2019, the price went up. The price of feed went up. And when the price went up, we were not notified before. We were not given any form of information. We just turned up at the mill and saw that the price was changed effective at a particular date. And during that time of 2019, commodities were not necessarily trading exceptionally high. In fact, if you were to do the research and go back and look at the trading status for corn, wheat, and so over the past 25 years, you would recognize that the trading of those items specifically was stable. It was relatively stable, but yet still prices increased. In fact, as a company, ADM has consistently made profits from even 20 2009 to 2020. Even during the last global recession, the company was operating very strongly. Now we salute the company as it's being managed well, but to what end and to what effect does it mean to small emerging economies like Grenada? We continue to be the tip of the sword. We continue to be the base at which the hammer strikes the anvil. And we continue to be pulverized because why? We say nothing, we accept it all, and we adjust. We go and we kneel at our bedsides every night and we pray and ask God to help us through this tough time. Well, God will not do for us what we need to do for ourselves. And we need the assistance. We need to have our government come forward, and we need to address matters, and we need to take these matters to task. Our people are serious. We are committed to our production. We are committed to growing the sector, but we cannot do it alone. Finally, a word to the wise is sufficient. We do not wish to have our farmers protesting in the streets. We do not wish to make this an international incident of sorts where farmers have to be crying out because we have a large investor who has been with us for many, many years, and we're touting that we want them gone. We do not want the company gone. We want the conditions under which we are currently doing business to be adjusted. We wish for things to be fair. And under these circumstances, we're asking for the management and the ownership of ADM Caribbean Agro Industries to have a heart and to review things that can make this transition, especially under these circumstances, make things a little bit easier. And we continue to ask that the current pricing, that there be a stay on the current pricing until a review can be done and there can be a bilateral agreement as to what would happen where prices are concerned. Because this is affecting us all. We are currently going through a very difficult time period, and our economy is directly linked to all of the large economies across the globe, especially the United States, and especially the United Kingdom. And whenever, as it says, whenever they cough, we catch the cold. Well, we have the cold really bad now. And though we have the coronavirus under control here in Grenada, it does not mean for 1 minute that what is happening in the United States will not significantly affect us for the long term. So we are calling, we are begging, and we are pleading at this time that we be understood, not heard. We want to be understood that we need help and we need the help now. We need action and we need action now. We need for the industry to be taken seriously. We need for bound rates to be reviewed. We need for farmers to have an ease knowing that the investment that they're making, that they do have the support to see it go all the way through to fruition. We have also asked for a review to be done because we're having lots of persons getting into production at this point. But we hear no talk about the development of agro-processing. And how do we utilize the excess that may be produced from time to time? Again, farmers, we absorb too many losses. And so the poultry policy needs to be enacted. We need to ensure that we implement what can be implemented, and we need to review and update and upgrade what needs to be upgraded. But some level of urgency needs to happen so that we can effectively move this industry forward. And it is my dream to see Grenada exporting poultry product to other countries sometime in the near future. So with this, I want to say thank you for giving us an ear, and we continue to plead, and we will continue to keep the nation updated as to what is happening with our farmers. And again, we do have all confidence in our leaders. We have 100% confidence that our leaders, they care for our farmers and that they will take the necessary action to secure not just our now, but our future. Thank you.
So at this stage, if you have any clarification, follow-up.
Do you have a meeting planned with government, or do you intend to write to them as the date is less than 2 days away and you're asking for us?
Yeah, definitely. We would write to them. I already had a discussion with the Director of Trade this morning, and I'm going to dispatch a letter to the responsible ministers, as captioned in the letter, the responsible ministers, which would be the Minister for Trade and of course the Minister for Agriculture, that would go out in short order, allotting them of our concerns and of course the speedy intervention to fix the now and also in the short term, how do we look at this whole context to protect, and it's not only our poultry farmers, our bakeries, our our little restaurants, our little food service places which make the sandwiches, and so on. I mean, what is sad about this whole thing is that in a few days, which is the 7th of February, this is our independence, Our independence, our independence is on the 7th of February. For importing of poultry of $30-something million, and we say we're independent. And we cry about it. But here, this is not independence now, this is a dependent. They're saying, look, to make my dumpling, which I so like, for the independence all long, you cost me more. You cost me more. Of course, we would put the breadfruit and those other items in it, but you cost me more. So here, sometimes you have to look at the optics. Is this the right time? And we believe that this is not even a time at all. But is this the right time as we face independence? We know every Grenadian, you want to make your breadfruit, your this and your all down. And every time you think about this bread, or you think about this dumpling, all you're thinking is that the price will go up. I think that's not fair.
What's the date of the letter?
The letter is dated the 29th of January 2021, and the 29th, if I'm not mistaken, might be Friday. When did you get that letter, Jason?
It was sent us on, it was, let me just be.
Because sometimes you could have a date in a letter, but the letter kind of go in a funny date, Of course, with email, you could just forward it quickly.
In the meantime,
Yes.
you made mention a few times about the Belize situation. What is the Belize?
Well, the Belize situation, recall about 3 weeks ago, we had chicken imported from Belize. You are aware of that? So what we're saying is that here you have Belize is already shipping to us, okay? Belize also is in the same category of development as a LDC, right? So we can say now, Belize, we can import feed from Belize. That is legal based on the Article 164, okay? But at the same time, what it's showing us is that if Belize could produce feed, which we know they can, at such cheaper price, based on the corn and the soya and other things, which they do a lot of, and they can ship to Grenada, okay, which they already start, then we in a further difficulty. So even if we try to import feed from Belize, just the cost of bringing it here would also put us even in a negative. So we have to sit down and do the maths and see what is it better for us in this country. So does it mean that government say, look, to keep it at this level, what is the intervention? Jason raised an important point. And whilst we may speak about the cost of energy, has been a big cost in the cost of operating hotels and other businesses. For the poultry farmer, a major cost is the cost of feed. So what we have to be doing is how do we reduce as much as possible? And let us not lose this sight. I'm not an economist. But what I do know is that from my discussion with persons and the livestock specialists, is that when you get those birds, it's not like us, we could decide some people skip dinner, they skip lunch, some people go on a fasting for 3 weeks. You can't fast a bird. They have to eat a certain amount of feed every day, because there is something called the feed to meat conversion ratio. 1 pound of feed give you 2 pound of feed, I think give you 1 pound of meat. So don't feed the bird and figure out how you get meat. Eh? That is the issue. Because so sometimes people talk about, oh, you need to have economies of scale and all of those things. And that them sound nice. But the reality is one bird has its portion already cut out. You can't give it half pound and quarter pound. No. Of course, as I mentioned, you could look at alternatives, but those are more supplements because could we produce the amount? And if we can, as I said, and it's so economically viable, then let's Caribbean Agro invest X amount, maybe in some local partnership, and cause the diversification of the type of feed that we have. Nothing is wrong with that. Because sometimes we could speak about things and it's nice to speak about it, but in a commercial context, it's difficult. And what is sad about this thing is that you have two new major investment, which is fully endorsed by myself and also the poultry. We will look at certain mechanics as well the business arrangement is, but it's a good boost for the poultry industry. And you have this situation happening. It is not in sync. You know, it shows that right hand and talking to left hand, and there is some confusion in the camp. And this we say in government, because you might find why we call it not government. Government, of course, is the charge of the country. We could jump up, we could jump down. But more so, the agreement which directing the whole terms as to how this feed and flour and all these things is produced is an agreement between not the Poultry Association and ADM, because the Poultry Association is young, they just come. It's an agreement that was there since in 1977, 1976 between the government of Grenada, whoever it was, because government is government, and this company. So the only people that could legally address this is the government, not the association. So that's why the association and myself, together with other farmers and other persons, they put their hand up in the air and say, please help us, government. Please help us in this situation. Right?
Yeah, that was the question I was coming with. How can this be effective without government's intervention? You know, like the price change. It can't just be the company make a decision within another man's country and just effect it, you know, and farmers pay more for products.
Exactly.
And then the government doesn't have a say.
Well, this is the danger. Two things happen. And Jason mentioned in 2019, I think, or 2018, the farmers went and they realized the price just increased. But as we say, and in my discussion with officials of the Ministry of Trade, which I want to get an official document to see because I'd like to see things properly to verify. But I mean, he walk in there, I take his word at value that animal feed is price control. But you see again, we have to be careful. As I said to him, I say it's price control. But there's not a cap. For example, in gas, we say gas has to be $2, $5. Cooking gas is this. But a lot of its controls are margins that are controlled and not the absolute price. So it's not just like a bag of broiler starter is the correct one, isn't it? Yes. Yeah, when I used to be teaching, I would call that broiler starter. Is $10 a bag. And it will remain $10. But what it's saying is the margin. So if the cost now is $15 as a claim to be the cost increase, all you have to do when I selling it is just make sure I manage the margins. But we want to go further on that and say, let us ensure that this cost you're doing here, is it a true cost? Is it a real cost? You know, what we want to know also, we can mind a business, but how much money would they be losing because of keeping the old price? You know, there had to be real transparency. So I don't need to show what documents that the price control is looking at in this space. I don't know what they are looking at. Are they looking at fuel price? Are they looking at feed price? Are they looking at administrative price? What price are they looking at? What costs are they looking at that would have caused this change. And if it means that we have to find other mechanisms to justifiably find out that, because it's like a sort of injustice. Because there must be a mechanism, something must be speaking about how do we change price? There must be some modus how to change price. Recall, in the Grenada agreement, there is a modus as to how they would work out the share value and how we work it out to end up with this arbitrary this price that we all say, Lord, is because of the formula. So what is the formula? Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of the poultry policy, I think I heard Mr. Jason call for it to be enacted. Can you speak to how having such a policy in place would, the sort of impact having such a policy in place would have on a situation like this? And can you speak to the status of the policy, please?
Okay.
Yes. But you know the policy is not.
Yes. Yes. So, well, first, let me just address a previous question that was asked with regards to the communique that was sent. It was sent on Friday at 4:06 p.m. Yes. So the communique was sent to us. It was sent to the Ministry of Trade, and we were copied with it at 4:06 p.m. on Friday afternoon. So the intent, in my opinion, was not that it should be seen until Monday morning, because as you can appreciate, no one really is operating at 4 p.m. based on operating times, and your reaction will come from Monday morning when you go through your emails. And judging the time frame, I just find it to be very disrespectful, to be very honest, because you would need at least the entire day on Monday to just address this matter, speak to colleagues and so, and before you can even respond to this. And from all indication, the Ministry of Trade has officially responded to the senders of the document, and they have guided them accordingly as to what is the initial course of action that they will be taking. So we will await to get an official response from the Ministry of Trade as to guide what is their process.
So at this point, you don't know what the Ministry of Trade would have responded to the
Right.
You
So
don't know the response of the Ministry of Trade.
So I have seen the response of the Ministry of Trade, but I think it would be irresponsible of me to bring out that information. What I would suggest is that communication with the Ministry of Trade in an official capacity, they would be able to give their version of what they would intend to do. However, as it relates to the poultry policy, the policy as a document has been submitted to government about a year or two ago. The whole intent of that document is to help guide the development and manage the area of the sector to ensure that